Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday, January 20th, 2009 informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. I'll call this meeting to order, and the first order of business is City Council staff report. And to do that, we're going to get updates from Deborah A. Owen, City Clerk.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. Just a couple of updates. Just to let you know, the Municipal League Day in Pier is the first week of February. That's the night of the 3rd and the day of the 4th. There are 3 council members attending. I believe it's Brown, Knutson, and Costello who are planning to attend at this point. And then to also let you know that there's Sioux Falls Day at the Legislature for the local Chamber of Commerce, which many of you sometimes attend that event as well. That would be Thursday of that same week. And if you would like to attend either of those, please let Jamie know, and she'll make arrangements for you. And then continuing on, you were sent an email for the Municipal League for the legislative update. Some items that are up that they're working on from the League on our behalf would be, one is a bill that would be that they are carrying that would require the Attorney General to write an explanation of the measure, like a state-initiated measure or a referendum, prior to that statewide effort being circulated. It would require the circulators to provide all signers with a copy of the Attorney General's explanation, and it requires petitions to be filed the November preceding the year of the general election, which would allow the legislature intervention if necessary. So it's a different change there. I think there are other changes out there as well that I'm aware of. Some would simply be to have the Attorney General weigh in on the language before it is circulated as well, to make sure that everything's good in legal form, so that before it would be signed and circulated. And this isn't by the League, I don't believe, but there's other efforts out there to ensure that the form of the legal language is in good form, so that it wouldn't be signed and then adopted by the voters and then go to court. So there's just some efforts there to kind of fine-tune that process. In addition, the Department of Revenue has introduced a bill, HB 1026, regarding Senate Bill 126 from the prior legislative session, and that's actually supported by the Municipal League. That really is to clarify the definition of a few things, add county where it was perhaps not included with city and county in terms of those restaurant liquor licenses, and to try an effort to clarify that 60-40 split in how that would be administered by the cities. And so if you have if you're interested, I'll give you the language. I have that here. If you'd like to see it, I'll be more than happy to provide you with a copy of it. In addition, something that I think a lot of you would like to see is there'll be an effort to change that local board of equalization to be more evenly distributed between the school district and the city council. Right now, it's 5 city council members and 1 school board member for that 3rd week in March. And actually, the city, I believe, receives the least amount of revenue from property taxes, and yet the majority of you sit on that board. So there will be an effort to change that board to have less city council members and more school members attend that. And before you'll find on that note, you'll find that there is the latest Board of Equalization schedule. You need to sign up for at least 5 spots. If you turn that one page over, we did a 2-sided copy there. You'll see that you need to sign up for 5 of those places that would fit within your schedule, and then get that back to either Jamie or Tamara in the next week, and we'll move forward with those efforts this year. And then also, another effort would be to allow municipalities to access federal background checks for municipal employees, ones that they are going to hire or have currently hired. There's some other things that really aren't all that relevant to us, but I wanted to draw your attention. There will be some increases in fees, which I know that everybody's been reading or watching on the news, and there'll be some proposed changes to the license fee for South Dakota malt, beverage, and wine package dealers will go from $175 to $225 if the legislature approves, in addition to the current 50-50 city-state split of those fees for malt beverage licenses. There will be a proposal to add a 50-50 city-state split for South Dakota malt beverage and wine beverage package dealer license fees. And there's one more, House Bill 1048, that is working its way through the legislature, and that would be to raise solid waste management fees from $1 to $1.25 per ton for municipal solid waste. And we'll just keep you informed on how those efforts work through the legislature. In addition, I sent you a memo, or actually I think most of you were couried a memo this weekend concerning a number of things, one which addressed the Audit Committee. Your current chair of the Audit Committee, Brad Witzel, who is a CPA, his term is up in February, and the council will need to reappoint or appoint someone else. I just wanted to bring that before you and your attention as we move that issue forward. And then also, in the Municipal League's monthly newsletter, there's an effort by a group for the cities to adopt a Silver Banner Day. And last year, on May 1st, about 46 states, including the District of Columbia and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and over 180 towns and cities across the country joined in this effort to declare a Silver Star Banner Day to remember the wounded and the ill of the armed forces. In this January latest edition from Municipal League, there is a copy of a resolution or a sample of a resolution. If the council wants to bring that forward and join in that effort, we sure could. I just wanted to draw that to your attention and just get back to me on that, what you'd like to do. And just to remind you, there's a Charter Revision Commission tour. It will be January 27th. It'll be the Minnehaha Jail is what they're going to be visiting, and you'll notice that in our notice of public meetings that you can attend those if you would like. Breakfast Club is this week on Wednesday. We'll have the co-chairs of the Event Center Task Force talk to the group, and that should be very interesting. That, again, is also open to the public. And then finally, Inside Town Hall. It's been in a couple of memos now, but a proposal to kind of schedule a portion of that throughout the year ahead of time so that you would be able to arrange your schedules. And then Denise, of course, I think all of you know, is a journalist by trade and has worked with the Argus for 13 years. But she put forward a proposal and kind of some ideas and is a resource to you if you are looking for topics. But the idea is, and if you'll see, you have at your desk or in your memo, you had a schedule of proposed district dates, or if you're at large too, to talk on topics that are really important to you, perhaps in your district, or perhaps if you're at large. I know in the past, as an example, would be with the Whittier neighborhood cleanup with Councilmember Knudsen and Councilmember Kavanaugh. They led that effort very well, and that whole neighborhood was very much involved. And so they went on Inside Town Hall, and I believe they brought some citizens forward who are part of that effort and just looking to try to create interesting ideas to jazz up Inside Town Hall. That's all I have.
Thank you, Deborah. Questions of Ms. Owen? Councilor Knudsen?
Not a question, but just regarding the Inside Town Halls, future of Inside Town Hall, I thought Denise's memo was just excellent. And as far as like having different city councilors go, out into their own district and focus on things going on, I think the outline that Mike Cooper or Director Cooper presented today at the Employees Forum for each, section of town was just it was a good review, plus some new things happening in 2009 that I hadn't quite heard about yet. They're very exciting, and I think that would be a nice outline for councilors if they wanted to use it for this show.
Thank you. Anybody else? Deborah, I had a couple of things there. Those trips to Pier that you talked about, you elaborated on a little bit. I would be interested in getting emails on the specifics of those, okay, the ones that you mentioned. And then I was wondering, you said in the language on the Senate bill about the liquor licenses. I was wondering if you could give us a little background on the county liquor permits, how you would obtain one, the difference between that and a city one.
I think they follow the same process in the statute. We have Lori Hogstad is the person who issues licenses through the authority of the state, and the county would follow the same. It's the same class of license. There was an issue, I think, when it was adopted in its original form, where sometimes it mentioned city and county, city, and there was a few times that came out, actually there was a ruling by the Department of Revenue. You all remember back in October there were some questions that were asked of the Department of Revenue, and they did point out there were some inconsistencies where the county wasn't interjected under a portion of that statute, but it would be the same process. So,
further questions of Deborah? Very good. Seeing none. Next, Mayor Munson, from the administration today, we have a couple of items on there, and it's my understanding that Mike Cooper, the Director of Planning and Building Services, is going to come forward. And the two subjects that Mike will address is A, will be the Sanford rezoning update, and B, will be the Islamic Community Center of South Dakota, the mosque, and conditional use permit update.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. Back in December of last year, December 15th, the City Council took action on a proposal to rezone property on behalf of Sanford north of 17th Street. That was approved by the City Council and became effective this January 8th. At the time of the second reading, staff was asked to follow up with a notification to all the affected property owners to make sure that they understood what the rezoning involved, and also to let them know that they would have a chance to change the zoning back to what it was if they so desired. So shortly after the December 15th meeting, the planning office sent out a total of 26 letters. Within the rezoning area that we approved, there were a total of 65 properties. 39 of those at the time were owned by Sanford, and 26 were privately owned. We sent out 26 letters, and I think all of you had a chance to look at the language in the letter. We tried to summarize what the planned development district was intended to do, that residential uses would continue to be allowed. If anybody had any questions or had a desire to change the zoning back, that we would like to be notified. As of last week, the letters that were sent out by certified mail, we have received 23 of the 26, and so far none of those property owners have requested that the rezoning be reverted back to what it was. The 3 remaining properties, 2 of those we were able to contact by telephone last week, and were asked to submit a new letter to a different address than what was identified for the property legal description. The third address, we don't have a phone number. We haven't had any indication that they received the original letter. So we actually tried to make contact today by knocking on the front door. Nobody answered. It does look like the building is, or the structure is occupied. So we're going to continue to make attempts to contact the property owner there, or the people that are living there. So 23 out of the 26, 2 are getting a new letter sent, and we're working on the other one as of today.
Questions of Mike? Very good, thank you.
The second item is the update on the conditional use permit at 15th and Garfield. And we had talked about this, concerns about how many people could potentially occupy the building. When the conditional use permit was approved, there was a requirement for 7 off-street parking spaces based on the seating plan that was submitted that showed 28 seats. And that's a standard zoning requirement that we have, that the required parking is not based on the overall occupancy of the building, but the seating area that's submitted. Most churches, most schools, most institutional uses will have different events or activities where there are more people than what would be typically there based on the seating area. And so the question came up as to, is this going to be allowed in the future at this location, and what will the building occupancy be? As I said, based on the parking requirements, the seating plan showed 28. The actual occupancy of the building that we typically use to post a notice inside is based on our building code and our fire code. And you have to have certain exit requirements. We look at the square footage of the overall building floor plan. There's a number of factors that go into determining the overall occupancy. In this case, at 15th and Garfield, the occupancy could be as high as 55 based on our building and fire codes. Last Friday, Shauna Goldhammer, our zoning enforcement manager, and I met with the applicant for the 15th and Garfield conditional use. We discussed what his plans were for the building, the concerns about the neighborhood, and some of the city council about the impact of the traffic in this area. He has agreed to sign a letter voluntarily that would limit for the first year the building occupancy to 28 maximum at any one time, and that he has also agreed that in December of this year that we would come back and review his conditional use like we do in many cases to see if there has been neighborhood issues or concerns so that we can try to address those at that time. So we are expecting to get a letter from him this week that would agree to the 28 maximum, as well as the December review of the conditional use permit. And then I'll be working with our building services folks to look at posting the building at the 28 maximum occupancy.
Questions of Mike? Councilor Knudsen?
Director Cooper, then after that voluntary form is signed by that applicant, will the city once in a while unannounced check on occupancy so that we can assure the neighbors in this rather controversial issue that they are complying with what they signed, or what?
You know, typically we do that by complaint, but I think in this case, we could work with the applicant, work with the neighborhood to try to monitor that so that we don't just wait until December and then come back with a report. Obviously, they are required to make some building improvements to meet the code requirements for the change in use, and they do have to build the parking lot. So before they are able to get an occupancy certificate to use the building, they will have to meet the requirements that we have put in place. But yes, I think once the building begins to be used, I'm certainly open to whatever ways we can monitor that.
And just one other follow-up question, and you have probably explained this to us before, and I may have forgotten the answer. And then regarding the parking lot, again, in an area that's not very large and so forth, and with people, neighbors living right behind it, are there, I don't remember any restrictions that the Planning Commission placed as far as like berms or trees or anything to just make it a little bit more attractive and more pleasing to the neighbors?
The screening requirements are in the zoning ordinance, so we didn't have to make that a condition of the permit.
Councilor Costello?
Mike, so they have to build their parking lot in order to get to the voluntary 28 occupancy.
Right. The zoning code provides for a minimum number of off-street parking spaces based on the seating floor plan.
Okay, so that they do that, then they'll get to 28.
Right.
And then a year from now, when their voluntary limitations are on, then they would go to 55?
I think then we would look at if we want that to change or not, or if we want it to continue to be at 28.
Okay, because I thought you said it was voluntarily they were doing that.
Well, the letter says he volunteered to write the letter. The way that the letter is worded is that, and I can forward you a copy of this after it's signed. We can agree that at 701 South Garfield, we will not exceed 28 people until the conditional use permit is reviewed by the Planning Commission in December of 2009.
Okay, so then just fast forward, they've lived up to their agreement, 28 people, not gone beyond that. Does the Planning Commission have any authority not to renew their conditional use?
If there hasn't been any neighborhood concerns, probably not. And of course, again, in that case, there could be another chance for the city council to see it if there was an appeal of that review.
So that a year from now, the neighbors could appeal
The increase, not the use, but the increase.
Not
Yes.
the addition, okay.
Right. The only way that the use could be brought before the Planning Commission and City Council would be if they do not comply with their ordinance requirements or if there's a major problem or issue with the area.
Okay, so as the agreement stands now, is there anything that the city council or the city can do if they agree to these terms? Do we have any recourse or any decisions to make on this?
I would say not until December.
Okay.
That would give us a chance. We've done this for other uses in the past where maybe it's something new to the neighborhood or it's a use that we think might generate some public concern or public review. And we've done the one-year review in other situations like that. So this seems to be kind of a compromise between what they're trying to get started and what the neighborhood will just like to watch out for, that it doesn't become a negative into the area. The applicant on Friday at least indicated that they're really starting to just establish their, right now, they don't really have that many people even identified that would begin to use this facility.
But, and just to follow up, though, to get a year from now in December, almost a year, to get to 55 people or whatever the final building number would be, they would have to come and get an additional conditional use?
We would be reviewing,
Reviewing the
the existing use as well as the letter to.
But at that time,
Yes.
the neighbors could protest it?
We could decide, do we want to keep it at 28 or do we want to change it?
Okay.
Yes. That
Council.
seems to be what I thought that I was asked to try to work out as an issue with the neighborhood as well as the Islamic Center.
Councilor Brown.
Mike, in terms of drainage, how do we know that that backyard will support a paved parking lot for the neighborhood?
Well, the parking lot, which will be hard surfaced, has to meet the engineering design requirements, and so the drainage would have to be designed in such that it does not impact any of the surrounding property owners.
And then I also had a question, but we used to receive the annual conditional use report reviews showing us whether they were meeting or not. In 2008, were there any significant ones that did not meet the conditional use reviews?
I don't believe so, but I'll go back and check that.
Thank you.
Councilor Knudsen.
Director Cooper, I assume that you have seen this letter that we were handed today, right before the meeting started, from Jean Carta. You have you seen that?
We just talked a little bit before the informational meeting
I was just
started.
wondering, I mean, because in this letter, we see another new number, according to her, that now we have discovered that the occupancy load determined by the Sioux Falls building inspectors and stated by Inspector Gary Dean will be 125 people. I was wondering if you could put that number to rest.
Are we talking about the 15th and Garfield site?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That
Yes.
obviously was an error. That was based on a calculation of one person for every 7 square feet, and the correct calculation should have been one person for every 15 square feet.
Thank you.
So the correct number is 55.
Thank you.
Councilor Staggers.
Yes, Mike, I was kind of intrigued with this idea of 28 seats. The mosque that I've been in the Middle East, there's really no chairs there. People are down on the floor.
Right.
So how do we come up with this 28?
Again, that was based on when we went through the public hearings and the neighborhood meetings. There was always this discussion about the off-street parking is for 28 people. And the seating plan that they...
Are they really going to have seats, do you think?
I don't know, but I'm just going by what they submitted to us. So I think a lot of people felt that it was going to be 28. And so we're just, again, trying to work through this by starting out saying if you agree to limit it to 28, and if it's not a neighborhood problem, if it's not a neighborhood concern, then maybe we can gradually expand that, or maybe we don't expand it. It just seems like this is a fair way to not only allow them to get their facility started, but also to try to work with the neighborhood.
Councilor Costello.
I'm just curious, what happens if they don't sign that letter?
Well, he has agreed to, but if he said I would not agree to do that, then my next option was going to be to take it back to the Planning Commission for another review.
Now, how can that happen? On what grounds? I mean, it sounds like this is not totally voluntary, this signing of the letter. Is this truly voluntary?
I believe it is, but I'm not, you're not looking like you're convinced by my saying that
I guess
today.
I'm not really.
Okay.
No.
I'm just going by my professional statement today that we were very cordial in meeting with him. I did not meet with him alone so that I would have another person there to witness the conversation. And I basically said, we have had neighborhood concerns about this. And during the review process, it was talked about 28. And a lot of people have it in their minds that that's what it's going to be. So would you be willing to sign a letter for now that would limit it to 28? And then we could come back and review it at the end of the year and see if, in fact, it is a neighborhood concern or not. And that's the way I would present it to them.
Okay.
Mike, I don't have any reason to believe that it wasn't anything but voluntary, but I'm just curious what if, sometimes people change their mind, so you can go back to the planning commission and ask for it to be reviewed even after it had been passed and the time had expired on the
To amend
challenge?
it, yeah, you could look at an amendment to the stipulations.
Okay.
Councilor Knudsen.
Director Cooper, my last question on this topic is, first of all, thank you for all the extra efforts on this. I mean, compromises are so important in life, I'm afraid. But I was wondering now, with the recent discussions you've had with the applicant, I was curious, do the neighbors or the leadership of the neighborhood feel any more comfortable with this issue?
I don't know because I haven't talked to any of them.
Right.
I was going to wait until we had the hearing today so I could make sure that I was addressing all the council questions or information. Once we do get the letter, we'll forward you a copy of that, and then we will make sure that we do have that we can contact our neighborhood representatives that we've been working with on this.
Mr. Jameson.
Mike, I apologize to drag this on, but could you explain that amendment process to the stipulations? It seems a little confusing.
Well, when there's a conditional use permit approved, in some cases there are stipulations put on that by the Planning Commission, or if it ends up going to the City Council. In this case, there was not a stipulation that said what the number of people would be. And again, I'm saying that if it was felt that it was necessary to go back and look at amending that conditional use to put a stipulation on that, then that would be something that we could consider. But I think the letter addresses everybody's concerns, and I know that we've done this in other situations where we've had an issue that's been somewhat contentious, and it seems to work pretty well that after there's a chance to see how it actually is working out, then you can change it or review it again.
Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little concerned about this possible process here. We've already agreed that this is what's going to happen, and now we're saying, well, maybe we'll take it back and we're going to change.
No, I wasn't.
We're going to have an amendment, or we're going to do this or whatever.
I was saying that if I was asked that what would happen if the letter had not been agreed upon.
Well, even if he doesn't agree on the letter, we already have an agreement. We're having an attempt here to just get some extra stipulations. And
I'm
if
not
they don't want
attempting
to,
that. No, I'm saying to you that I'm bringing you today what I thought was a solution to the question by both the council and the neighborhood.
see, my concern is what you also mentioned beyond that, though.
I was asked
That,
a question.
in the
what
future,
if?
somewhere along the line, we can
Okay.
maybe try to add some amendment or whatever. We already have an agreement. And if they sign the letter, so much the better.
And they are going to sign the letter, so.
And
It
so
should
then we
take
don't
care of
have to talk about the future then, about changing things.
I was asked a question, so I needed to respond to that question.
So is that true? We don't have to worry then about the
Right.
future,
Yes.
changing things? Okay.
Mr. Cooper, I was looking at Gene Sarda's letter here, and there is a petition, and I'm not sure about the validity, considering that the people that right after the Planning Commission's decision missed the deadline to protest this, but there is a petition in here with some signatures, and some of these people I'm very familiar with. Is there any legitimacy to this here that could be adhered to at this time or looked at, or is it too late?
The protest petition, or it's not.
You have a copy
Yeah,
of it right there. I saw Jeff put it up there for you.
So I really don't have any legal recourse of.
Okay,
I'll
the other
address
part,
that.
okay, that's what my
Yes.
question was, is
Right.
if we had any, okay. The other part is, I understand our parking zoning puts it at 28, and the fire department says 55 max. I know the house, I've actually been in the house. Back a while back, I ran a campaign, and I stopped in when the original owner was in there, and it's a small house. And
Right.
I just can't imagine 55 people being shoehorned into there, and I was wondering why we have a disparity between what the parking limit would encompass, and then we have a safety feature of the fire department. And I guess I just don't understand why these numbers aren't a little bit more in line with each other.
Again, these codes are very complex, but essentially the easiest way that I can explain this is that parking is a minimum requirement, and it's not based on the overall occupancy of any building. It's based on, in this case, the seating of 1 per 4. Most buildings, whether it's a church or a school, there are occasions where there are people in that building that are not sitting down for different programs or activities or events. And so we have another standard for fire safety primarily, so that if there is an emergency, that we have a safe way for people to exit the building. And so we put a maximum number based on that requirement.
Very good. Other further questions of Director Cooper? Okay, seeing none. Mike, thank you for your time.
Did you want me to talk about the other subject today?
Yeah, the pavilion windows.
I didn't have this on the agenda, but I wanted to update the council on the Washington Pavilion windows. We did go through a bid process to complete those replacement windows, and the bids were opened on January 8th. We had 10 bids, and the low bid that is recommended for being awarded is a total of total bid award, including the alternates, is $779,400. And in the amount that we had budgeted was $975,576. The estimate was $791. So the low bid did come in well below the estimate as well as the budget. And we are looking towards awarding that bid shortly.
Okay, then, Mike, you said that we had some, alternates, but certainly not all the alternates would be exercised, just certain ones would be. Is that my understanding of it? Is that correct?
These alternates would all be included within that dollar amount.
Okay. But will they, do some of the alternates, as I understood it, were the same thing?
Right.
So then there would be no way we'd spend all of the 700, because there's some of the alternates are doubled up, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Well, the base bid plus the alternates that we're going to do will total the 779.
Okay. Councilor Costello?
Mike, can you just confirm that money will come out of the entertainment tax?
That's correct,
And
yes.
we were up, 9% in the entertainment tax this year, the one bright spot in our...
Yeah. And actually, I believe last year we did add to that because remember we had been told that we did not include the cost for installation, if you remember that discussion.
Yep. How could I forget?
Which did get a little bit of attention, and so today I'm here to tell you that this does include installation.
Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, who's going to be doing the windows? Are they historically correct? When are we
Yes.
going to start and when are we going to stop?
Okay, the bid specifications were done by Architecture Incorporated, our consultant, and they were approved by the Pavilion Management Group as well as the city staff before they went out. And obviously, all the bid submittals were reviewed by all the parties. So these will be the historic look. They will be well insulated and they will meet the bid specification requirements. The timeline, probably within the next month, they could begin, and they would be completing the project probably around September of this year.
What company is going to be doing it, actually? Any idea?
The low bid is Suncoda Construction Incorporated.
We'd still have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for the actual manufacture of the window since the bid hasn't been
Right.
awarded. Is that my
Right.
understanding?
There's about a month delay in getting the windows ordered.
Any other questions for Director Cooper?
How much
Councilor
did we
Staggers?
pay Architects Limited to do this for us? To the bidding?
I think I'm not sure if this is the correct number. I have down $50,000 Architecture Incorporated fees.
It's probably not right, is it?
Yeah, I'll have to verify
Yeah.
that. I'll go back and check
Okay.
that for you.
Other questions of Director Cooper? Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, Pettigrew Heights, how are we doing on a briefing for that?
We have been telling you for some time that we're working towards a final proposal to bring to the council. Right now, we're waiting for one final potential grant program from the South Dakota Housing Development Authority. that would help us with that overall development project. And we have been waiting from the state housing group to notify us about that grant program. So as soon as we hear on that, we'll bring to you the proposal. And as I've said, I'm still would like to do that yet this month.
Yes, also, Mike, I'd had a request from a counselor that we get updates on the 3 remaining properties on the Sanford project.
Yes,
Are they
definitely.
Sanford
We will
zoning?
follow through on our, because we have not given up. We still want to make sure that we contact all 3 of them, and we get a letter from them as well that they're either in support or not in support of the new zoning.
And then also for anybody in the general public and other counselors to know, I think Counselor Jameson has requested that we review this process for this type of a situation should it come up again, so that'll be coming at us in the future.
I think we're going to be looking at the Land Use Committee meeting
That's correct.
coming up on that, so
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Mike.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
See you later.
Okay, next we have the Audit Committee.
No report.
No report. Okay, Fiscal Committee, Mr. Bennigan.
No report, but I have a question about the Audit Committee. Is there a list of potential candidates to replace the expiring candidate participant? Where are we at with that?
I don't believe there's been a whole lot of discussion on that. I can speak for myself as an Audit Committee member that I certainly hope that that gentleman will stick around because he has offered strong leadership over the last couple of years. I think he's indicated that perhaps he's willing to consider that anyways as well.
Super. And no report on the Fiscal Committee.
Very good. Land Use Committee, Mr. Jameson.
Like Mike Cooper had mentioned, we're going to meet on the 26th, and the topic of the day is going to be just trying to improve our communication efforts whenever we're in a rezoning effort so that we just communicate better. We're not going to talk about whether or not the Sanford project was done properly or improperly. It was really just how can we make the whole process better. That's the topic of discussion. So please come and join us if you'd like.
Thank you, Councilor Jameson. The Public Services Committee, since Kenny Anderson is in Washington, D.C., Vernon, would you please?
We had our meeting last week and finally resolved on the revised ethics ordinance, and City Clerk Deborah Owen will calendar that for the entire council to consider. We've spent a lot of time on this, and I think we've come up with a good revision on the ordinance.
Thank you for that. Questions of Vernon? Seeing none, the next item, number 8, is the City Council open discussion. Councilor Knudsen.
Just 3 quick things is, one, a reminder about this year's Whittier Neighborhood Cleanup, voluntary cleanup, has been set for Saturday, April 25th, and the wonderful folks at the banquet are going to feed us dinner after we get done with our work. And so I'd like you to put that on your calendars if you would, please. And then for the first meeting to kind of get that voluntary, it's the 3rd year, cleanup effort organized, there will be a meeting on Thursday, January 29th at 6:30 p.m. at the Youth Barn there by East Side Lutheran Church. And so I'm just sharing that for you, but also obviously for the listening public. And again, a person does not have to live in the Whittier neighborhood to volunteer to help with this great effort. And then I learned last week when I was doing a show with Elizabeth Whaley, our inspirational leader of our zoo, that recently a National Geographic photographer had come to our own zoo. And I love National Geographic, but in the January 2009 issue, there is actually a photograph of some of our own Hawaiian geese on page 88. And so I thought that was really special that we even have photographers coming from National Geographic to photograph our geese. And it sounds like this is not unusual that we have a very good relationship with this photographer who really, specializes in endangered species. And anyway, I wanted to share that with you. And then my third just thought for you was visiting with someone else before our meeting started today, and I wondered if I think on the City Council that we all, without exception, I believe, feel strongly about open government, open records and so forth. But, when I was proposing those legislative priorities, which thankfully you supported all of them, is that I forgot to add that open government, open records, and it's kind of a given for me, but I just would, I'd like to just know if you'd like to, amend your legislative priorities and add that.
Councilor Knutson, I see you're wearing leopard skin. Nothing happened to one of our cats at the zoo, did it?
But it is a fun outfit nonetheless.
Very good. Councilor Jameson.
Just a couple of updates. I talked to Councilor Anderson in Washington, D.C. just a few minutes ago, prior to this meeting. Kenny is very excited and happy to be there. I think he got all of his exercise in. He got all kinds of walking in. But he's anxious to come back and tell us the story about what he got to see and participate in, but very excited guy. Also wanted to update you on my trip to Fargo to see AC/DC. I know you've been waiting for that. We had a great time, but all I can really say is that the economic activity was very vigorous. It was very fun. I've got all kinds of pictures of the dome, but full of people, but I don't think you really need to see that. You can envision what it's probably like. And also last week before the concert, I made a call to the governor's office. I was just excited about this whole deal, and I wanted to kind of check the temperature of the governor's office on this whole idea of building an event center in Sioux Falls. And today I got a call back from Neil Fulton. He's the chief of staff. Nice guy. We spent probably 15 minutes talking. And I guess the temperature from them really is that they're behind any community that wants to create economic activity within their community. They're behind us 100%. The idea of backing any proposal isn't going to happen until they see a formal proposal from the Event Center Task Force when they get their information all together in front of them. But just in further discussion, I think it's probably important for us to consider how an event center would impact the rest of the state, not just Sioux Falls. I think if we really want to get this done, we got to think outside of Sioux Falls. We got to think of how it's really going to be best for, I would think, all of eastern South Dakota, but then in general for the state of South Dakota. I think if we really want to get it done, we got to think bigger than just Sioux Falls. I guess that's really it.
Councilor Knutson.
Councilor Jameson, when you visited with the governor's chief of staff, did you leave the conversation thinking that if, in fact, our hardworking and long-working, for like years, task force on an event center provided a proposal that the governor's office would lead the charge on permissive legislation to allow us to get an event center built?
I actually kind of asked that exact question, but until there's a formal proposal in front of them, they'd hate to speculate on whether they would or wouldn't. They really like to see I guess that's how a politician answers a question. And it seems fair, I suppose. They don't need to be put in a box just yet on what ifs. But I think until the committee comes together with a full recommended plan, they're going to just kind of hold back and wait. But he did reassure me that the governor and the governor's behind any local community who wants to build any kind of center or create any economic activity within their own community. They're going to support that. They're not going to try to stop any of that from happening.
Councilor Knudsen.
I don't know, just a final thought that I probably should save, but I mean, I do hope this governor and the next 5 or 6 governors afterwards realize that the cost of an event center is just going to go up more and more and more, as cities like ours are not, allowed to let our citizens vote on whether or not we want to build a facility that we badly need to replace one that's almost 50 years old. So, again, we've only talked about this topic for 6.5 years while I've been on council and several years before that, but anyway, I'm a little frustrated, as you can tell.
Councilor Jameson.
really, there's no need to get frustrated, Dee. Just, all we really need is the Event Center Task Force, which I know those guys are working on this proposal and all the information needed. I think until we get a real solid plan together, I think that's really important to move forward. And I know it's just, I'm anxious, I'm chomping at the bit, but I think that's probably going to be our best plan, and we just need to be patient.
Councilor Jameson, that you wouldn't want the pictures of you at an AC/DC concert made public, I can understand. But as a member of the Event Center Task Force, I would like to see them and see the facility, functioning as a concert. Any other questions of Mr. Jameson? Anything else for the good of the order here on the open discussion?
Can you bring your T-shirt next time?
Very good. Seeing nobody, presentations are done. There's been some discussion about going into executive session. Were we still going to do that, Pat?
Well, we had talked about going over the city clerk's JEQ, and I guess we can decide whether or not that needs to be or should be an executive session, and if it does, whether or not we're prepared to do it right now. I'm, for one, didn't get it until about an hour ago, so I have not read it. So I wouldn't be opposed to putting it off, but whatever the will of the council is.
I'd like to point out that Councilor Anderson's very interested in this subject and is not here right now as well. Councilor Knudsen?
Well, I'm fine with whatever the group wants to do. I think since it is a personnel issue, that I think it's fine to go into executive session whenever we have the meeting. And the other thing is, I'm very comfortable with the chair and the vice chair at their convenience, thoroughly, reviewing it and making any changes that need to be, if any, and signing it and getting it over to the personnel office. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something.
Well, I for one think all the council should review the JEQ, and we should be, at least have some kind of consensus on its content. So
Okay.
I feel much better doing it as a group.
Mr. Brown?
I would recommend we hold off to, I received it this morning, but have not had a chance to read through it, and I think that until we've all read it, it's probably not a good use of our time.
And I too feel like Councilor Costello, that I think I would like to have all of us in on this here, because it is our situation here to deal with. We want to do it right for the future. And, like I say, if we delay this for a little bit, and why don't Pat and I look at what the possible future dates, considering everything, would be, and then we'll send out an email and figure something out.
Deborah, I know we don't have the agenda set for next week's informational, or do we have any ideas? Or
I think the leadership approved it today. The deadline was 10
Okay.
o'clock this morning, so you have an update from Roanhorst on city financials, and I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but I did review that, and I think it's been set.
it's pretty light, though, isn't it?
Relatively. You do have a committee meeting. You have Public Services Committee meeting on zoning. Land use.
We should be able to at least have a half hour to dive into it and talk about it next week, shouldn't we? So let's maybe plan on doing that next Monday in executive session at the informational.
Anybody not in agreement? Very good. Mr. Brown, do you have a comment?
Just a quick comment, and if leadership wants to go through it first and formulate recommendations, that might speed the process as well, too.
Very good. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, I guess do I need a motion to adjourn here?
And for information, I don't think, do we? Or
I
do we?
don't think we do for an informational, just if we go into executive. Okay, then we stand adjourned. Thank you.
All good.